Pronouns and antecedents. As you watch the video, make sure that you are filling in your notes. There will be blanks that you'll need to fill in. There are also going to be some exercises that we'll do together. And you want to make sure you're writing down what I show you on the screen and taking any notes that might help you so when you do this later on your own, you know what's going on. So before we can talk about pronouns and antecedents agreeing, or even what an antecedent is, let's review pronouns. So pronouns help writers avoid boring sentences. So after you mention a person, place, or thing, writers can just say he, she, or it, or some other pronoun for the rest of that sentence or that paragraph. That way, the name or idea doesn't have to be written every time. If you continue to say someone's name over and over and over again, it's going to be pretty boring and it's going to sound kind of strange. So that's when we use pronouns. There are different types of pronouns. So there are subject, object, and possessive pronouns. And this should all be reviewed to you. You have a chart that looks like the one on the screen in your notes. So make sure that you're filling in your chart as I go through and explain. Subject pronouns, it does the action. So in a sentence, we say that the subject is who or what the sentence is about. Who or what is doing the action in the sentence. So a pronoun that does the action in a sentence is considered a subject pronoun. Singular examples, so they're referring to one person or one thing, would be I, you, he, she, and it. Plural, meaning that they're referring to multiple people or multiple things, would be we, you, or they. Object pronouns means that the action happens to it. So whatever action is happening in the sentence is happening to that person or to that thing. Some singular examples would be me, you, him, her, and it. And some plural examples would be us, you, and them. And finally, possessive pronouns. They are the owner, so taking ownership of something in a sentence. Singular examples would be my, mine, your, yours, his, her, hers, or its. And plural examples would be our, ours, your, yours, their, or theirs. At this point, if you don't have your chart filled in, pause the video to make sure you get all of this information down. So pronouns help writers avoid boring sentences, but because of that, we use a lot of pronouns in our writing. So it's very important that we know what those pronouns are talking about. So whenever you see a pronoun, make sure you know what person, place, or thing it's referring to. If you don't know who or what the pronoun is talking about, it makes the sentence very confusing. So who or what the pronoun is referring to is called the antecedent of the pronoun. So we're going to look at some examples of pronouns and antecedents. So we're looking at a passage from the novel Number the Stars, which you read last year. So for each pronoun that we find, we're going to decide what noun it is talking about. So what is its antecedent? So we're going to start by just going through the passage and looking for all of the pronouns. So all the pronouns we see, we're going to circle them. So I'll race you to the corner, Ellen. Right away, I see two pronouns. I see I and I see you. Anne-Marie adjusted the thick leather pack on her back so that her school books balanced evenly. So looking in that sentence, a couple pronouns that I see are her and then her again. Ready? She looked at her best friend. So she is a pronoun, and her is a pronoun. So we're going to keep going and looking for more pronouns. Ellen made a face. No, she said, laughing. Well, she is a pronoun. You know I can't beat you. My legs aren't as long. Can't we just walk like civilized people? So there's a bunch of pronouns there. So we have you and I. And you again. My is a pronoun. We. She was a stocky 10-year-old, unlike lanky Anne Marie. Finally, you have one more pronoun here, she. Okay, so we've gone through and we found all of the pronouns in this passage. Now we need to find their antecedents. So to do that, we're going to look at each pronoun and say, who or what is that pronoun talking about? So looking at our first pronoun, I. Who or what is I? Well, I'll race you to the corner, Ellen. Anne-Marie adjusted the thick leather pack on her back. So Anne-Marie must be the person talking in this sentence. So that means that I is referring to Anne-Marie. So we know who I is referring to, which is good. Then you. Anne-Marie is talking to someone. She's saying, I'll race you to the corner, Ellen. So that you must be Ellen. So the pronoun I has the antecedent Anne-Marie, and the pronoun you has the antecedent Ellen. So we're going to keep going. Anne-Marie adjusted the thick leather pack on her back. Well, Anne-Marie is doing the action, so her must be talking about Anne-Marie. So that her school books balanced evenly. Again, we're still talking about Anne-Marie. It's Anne-Marie's school books. They belong to her. Ready? She looked at her best friend. She, again, is still talking about Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie is looking at Ellen. And her best friend, that's Anne-Marie's best friend. So when you're asking yourself what is the antecedent for that pronoun, you can always take the antecedent and replace it back in the sentence where the pronoun is. So for instance, in this last sentence, I could have said, Anne-Marie looked at Anne-Marie's best friend. It would still make sense, it just sounds kind of silly, which is why we use the pronouns. So let's look at the second paragraph. Ellen made a face. No, she said, laughing. Well, Ellen is the one speaking here. Ellen's the one making a face. She's responding to Anne-Marie. So that means that Ellen is the antecedent for she. You know I can't beat you. So you is again talking about Anne-Marie. Ellen is talking to Anne-Marie, saying you, Anne-Marie, know that I, Ellen, can't beat you, Anne-Marie again. So the antecedent for you is Anne-Marie because Ellen is talking to Anne-Marie. The antecedent for I is Ellen because she's talking about herself. And the antecedent for you is again Anne-Marie. My legs aren't as long. So my legs, the my has the antecedent of Ellen because she's talking about her own legs. It's one of those possessive pronouns, taking ownership. Can't we just walk like civilized people? Well, we is talking about both of them, Anne-Marie and Ellen. She was a stocky 10-year-old, unlike lanky Anne-Marie. She is talking about Ellen. So for every pronoun, there should always be an antecedent. You should be able to decide who or what the pronoun is talking about. And again, you can usually substitute in the antecedent wherever you see the pronoun, and it would make sense. It just might sound silly. So for instance, in this last paragraph, Anne-Marie, you know that I, Ellen, can't beat you, Anne-Marie. My, Ellen's legs aren't as long. Can't we, Ellen and Anne-Marie, just walk like civilized people? Ellen was a stocky 10-year-old, unlike lanky Anne-Marie. So we always want to start by first finding the pronouns and then asking ourselves, who or what is the pronoun talking about? And that's its antecedent. So pronouns and antecedents have to agree. So if they don't agree, then they don't actually work. So when they agree, they must agree in number. So they're talking about a singular or plural, and gender, male or female. So for pronouns and antecedents to work together, to agree, they have to agree in number and gender. So for example, Mark went to his best friend's house. So we're going to go through and let's look at it again. Mark went to his best friend's house. His is the pronoun that we see. What is his talking about? What is its antecedent? It's his best friend's house, so it's Mark's best friend's house. So now let's check to see if this pronoun and antecedent agree. So Mark, our antecedent, is one person and masculine. So then let's check our pronoun to see if it agrees. The pronoun his refers to a single person, and it is also masculine. So that means that the pronoun and the antecedent agree. So they match in number, both singular, and gender, both masculine. Example number 2. Leslie and Mary went to their favorite restaurant. There is the pronoun in this sentence. Who or what is there talking about? Well, there is talking about Leslie and Anne-Marie. It's talking about both of them because it uses the word and. So we're looking at Leslie and Mary as the full antecedent. So, Leslie and Mary are multiple people, and it's feminine. We have 2 females. The pronoun there is plural, which is good because Leslie and Mary are multiple people, so it agrees in number. And there can refer to any gender, male or female. So that means that it agrees in gender because it can also refer to a feminine pronoun or antecedent. That means that the pronoun and the antecedent agree. They agree in number, multiple people, and there is plural, and they agree in gender. Leslie and Mary are feminine, and there can be any gender. But there are some weird antecedents that make this a little more tricky. So we have indefinite pronouns. Indefinite pronouns are words like everyone or anyone. So that can be a little tricky because they sound plural. It sounds like you're referring to a group of people. Everyone in this room. Does anyone want to do this? Like I'm talking to many people. But in fact, I'm not. They're considered singular. They are not considered plural. So a trick here would be to think of it this way. Everyone and any one. Emphasizing that one helps remind you that we're considering those pronouns singular. So every one person. Any one person. So they're singular. But we don't know the gender of everyone or anyone. So usually we say them or they, and that's a common error. Them or they is plural. So it wouldn't agree. If everyone is singular, we can't use the pronoun them because it's plural. Therefore, we have to use his or her as a pronoun. So does everyone have his or her notebook? A common error would be to say, does everyone have their notebook? But again, that's wrong because their is plural and everyone is singular. So you have to use his or her. His and her, both of those words, are singular. But again, we don't know their gender. So we have to say his or her. So, some examples. Singular, each, either, neither, one, no one, nobody, nothing, anyone, anybody. All of these words can be tricky. These are all singular indefinite pronouns. And some plurals would be several, few, both, many. So these are the words that we have to keep an eye out for. Some examples. Nobody will forget to do his or her notes for Mrs. Keller's class. So nobody is our antecedent. This is a singular indefinite pronoun. So nobody, we can think of it as no body, no singular body, will forget to do his or her notes. The common error would be to say their notes for Mrs. Keller's class. But again, that would be incorrect because nobody is singular. So we have to use singular pronouns. His and her, again, are both singular. But we don't know the gender of nobody. So we have to say his or her. We can't just say one or the other. So several students nailed their pronoun antecedent homework. Several. Well, that's plural, because that's talking about a bunch of people, a bunch of students. So that means that we're going to need a plural pronoun. So the pronoun their agrees, because it is plural. It's talking about multiple people. And it agrees in gender because there could be any gender and several could be any gender, so it works fine. So this pronoun there agrees with its antecedent several. Everyone who does his or her work will do well. So everyone is our antecedent. Again, this is singular. So you want to think about it as saying every one person who does his or her work will do well. His or her, this pronoun agrees because every one person is singular. His and her are both singular pronouns. And we don't know the gender of everyone, so we have to say his or her. Again, a common error would be everyone who does their work will do well, and that is incorrect. So these are all examples of a pronoun and an antecedent agreeing. So remember, pronouns help us avoid boring sentences, but they again have to make sense. They have to agree. So looking at this sentence, which pronoun is a mistake? If your friend is in trouble, you should help them. So you is a pronoun. Them is a pronoun. The antecedent for you would be your. The antecedent for them, who is them? Well, them is your friend. We're talking about your friend. Do you see the mistake? So the word them is a plural pronoun, but the word friend is singular. It's not your friends are in trouble, it is your friend is in trouble. So the word them does not agree with its antecedent friend. So when pronouns and antecedents don't agree, one of them has to change. We have to fix it. So we either have to change the antecedent friend or the pronoun them. So we have two options here. We could say, if your friend is in trouble, you should help him or her. So now it is singular. Him is singular and her is singular. So it agrees with friend. We don't know the gender of the friend, so we would say him or her. We can't say one or the other. The other option would be if your friends are in trouble. So we changed the antecedent and we made it plural. You should help them. So the word them again is plural. So now because the antecedent is plural, they agree. So now it's your turn. So you're going to read the paragraph on the next slide in your notes and circle the pronoun in each sentence and then draw an arrow to the antecedent it refers to. So just like we did in the earlier example, go through and find all the pronouns and circle them, and then draw an arrow to what they're talking about, the antecedent. Here's the important part. If they don't agree, cross out the pronoun and replace it with the correct one. So they need to agree in number and gender. If they don't agree, you need to fix the pronoun or fix the antecedent. So that is your practice, which will be checked for credit. Everybody had a chance to express their opinion about a new shopping mall. Mrs. Granger and Mr. Franks are happy about his or her new business locations at the mall. Both said that his profits have increased significantly. Neither Mr. Chen nor Mr. Cooper, however, feels that their customers find parking convenient enough. Anyone shopping at the mall has to park their car too far from the main shopping area. Several members of the council said that the mall has taken away many of their customers. One of the new women on the council then presented their own idea about creating a farmer's market on weekends. Many members said he or she favored the plan, and a proposal was discussed. Each farmer could have their own spot near the town hall. The Small Business Council then agreed to take their proposal to the mayor. So you need to go through, circle all of the pronouns, draw an arrow to the antecedent for every single pronoun, and then correct any errors that you see. And again, this will be for homework credit.